From the air, from the ground, and fighting fire with fire, authorities battle to control a blaze that's taken hold in the Glasshouse Mountains National Park. Those evacuated yesterday thought they were in the clear, but this afternoon crews raced to protect homes as the blaze broke containment lines. Police are treating it as suspicious. More than a dozen fires are burning across the state, from New Mapoon on Cape York to the Scenic Rim. Emerald cattle producer Maury Iddles was allowed back to his home last night after flames took hold in a forestry lease.
We've had 3 or 4 fires in the last month. It's pretty scary.
The threat came within a kilometre of his home.
There's that much fuel, that's what's so worrying.
Campers have been told to leave the nearby Blackdown Tableland National Park as a bushfire tears through. Further north, water bombers joined the effort to tame a blaze at Gelago, south of Townsville. Temperatures are predicted to reach the mid-30s on Thursday, 10 degrees above average. That's when the fire danger is expected to peak.
On the eastern Gulf of Thailand, the waters are an unusually bright jade green. With estimates some areas contain more than 10 times the normal amount of plankton, an aquatic dead zone is developing in its wake.
The damage appears to be 100%. They just fall off when you shake it. There are no live mussels left. They're all dead, including the oysters too.
The high amount of plankton harms the environment and marine life in several ways.
The plankton in the water eats up all the nutrients or dies due to a lack of light. Their carcasses will then sink to the seabed and are decomposed by bacteria. The bacterial decomposition depletes oxygen in the water.
Authorities say more than 80% of the 300 mussel farms in the Chonburi area have been affected by the plankton bloom. This fisherman estimates it's cost him $20,000.
I'm 100% certain that I'd lose over 500,000 baht. As for other farms around here, the loss is unfathomable.
Scientists are still trying to understand the scale of destruction. While plankton blooms typically happen 1 or 2 times per year, this instance is extreme.
This is the first I've seen it so bad since I was born, which means it's very severe this year.
With El Niño expected to cause drought and higher sea temperatures, scientists are still trying to work out if the two events are related.
From a scientific perspective, we haven't reached a clear conclusion. We can only see both events have occurred at the same time.
There's hope science will help predict future patterns, so maybe the next major bloom can be avoided.
It's been 4 long, hot months since the East Nusa Tenggara region has seen rain. These once fertile rice fields are now terraces of parched dirt. Thousands of hectares in the Prabakul village in the East Sumba district have been destroyed by drought.
The rain stopped in May this year. We haven't been able to plant anything since then. We need help from the government. We have to ration our food because the rice that we have is not enough to consume like on normal days.
Residents are also struggling to access clean water. With catchments and rivers reduced to a trickle, they have no choice but to walk kilometres to the nearest riverbed, then take supplies back to their village to drink, wash and irrigate their dying crops.
I'm worried the drought will continue for a long time. How are we going to live? How do I feed my family?
It's a reality acknowledged by Indonesian authorities, who warned that the El Niño, which brings prolonged hot and dry weather, is now affecting more than 2/3 of Indonesia. The impact is expected to peak in the last week of September, with an even greater risk of water shortages, forest fires and crop failure. The region is a big producer of palm oil, rice and coffee beans. This year, due to the exacerbated heat and the prolonged drought, farmers have struggled to produce a crop.
We need more than 30,000 tonnes of rice for all the people living in the East Sumba region for a year. We are usually able to provide rice from our own farmers' fields, but this year we weren't able to do it.
With these conditions expected to continue into October, the President Joko Widodo has instructed regional governments to set aside funds to aid those worst hit.
sea ice surrounding Antarctica is well below any previous recorded winter level. That's what's shown by satellite data, and it's a worrying new benchmark for a region that once seemed resistant to global warming. Have a look at this map. So this image shows the typical extent of sea ice at this time of year, specifically on the 14th of September. So that's the yellow dotted line. But the actual extent of ice is much less than the median. And as we head into the Antarctic summer, much of the existing ice will continue to melt. Well, let's get more on this and go live now to Mike Childs, who's Head of Policy, Science and Research at Friends of the Earth. Thanks so much for joining us, Mike. So what does that regression of sea ice tell us about global climate shifts?
Well, it tells us that climate change is happening faster than we thought. We're seeing these kind of alarm bells going off around the world. We've got the sea ice, as you say, in Antarctica. We've got Canadian wildfires we've seen all through the summer, extreme rain, perhaps connected to the dreadful situation in Libya. We saw much of Europe under record heat wave this summer. I mean, this is just another wake-up call to governments to say we really need to start taking this issue seriously. We really need to stop putting oil on the fire of climate change by giving the go-ahead to new oil and gas licenses or failing to curb emissions. Because, you know, as this sea ice goes and as we see these extremes around the world, we're going to get more and more dangerous weather events around the world, harming more people and harming our economies and food production. But of course, as you say, Lexma, there's lots of species that also depend on that sea ice and a stable environment. So certainly for some of the penguins we see in Antarctica, that's going to be more and more worrying. We're going to see much more challenging environment for them to thrive, and we could lose some species of those. And then in the north, in the Arctic, we can see the challenges faced to wildlife there. So wildlife will be suffering because of this climate change, both in those locations, but around the world, because this extreme weather that's battering the planet is not only harming humans and harming our economies and harming our food production, of course, it's having a devastating impact on wildlife as well.